boys and girls, curlies. Archaic, permits you, evolutor, Cryptos, Donator, and Fusion Upper Lord, OverExposedKaiju, and today we're back on the reaction channel doing more OverSimplified. This is the second Punic Wars, and this is literally back to back with the first recording of like the Punic Wars, which that was like a 2 hour long recording session. So I had to take a little break, went to go get some water. Got up a step, walked around for a little bit. It's kind of like a little break. And now we are back. We're gonna be doing second Punic Wars. This one actually has 3 different episodes to it. We got part 1, part 2, and part 3, and we're gonna combine all in one episode. So if the first episode is 2 hours long, roughly. This one might be a bit long. So make sure you got your popcorn. Make sure you grab a drink, sit back, relax, and we're gonna learn about the second Punic War today. But before I get into that, do me a favor if you're new and you enjoy the content and commentary, hit up the like button, and if you're new and you enjoy the content and commentary, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the Satire Mafia, it goes a long ways. And yeah, you enjoy me at Dark Abyss. It'd be a lot of fun. We got a lot of interesting, funny, and cool reactions around here. And yeah, so maybe stick around. And make sure you check out OverSimplified. I'll put the link to his channel below. Go subscribe to him. He's awesome. And make sure you go leave a like to the 3 videos we're reacting to today. I'll put the links to all of that in the below. So go check them out if you want to check out the videos without my commentary. But yeah. Anyways, let's get right on into.
All right, our beloved mercenaries.
Okay. Sisaka, Carthage, 241 BC, immediately after the first Punic War.
All right, our beloved mercenaries. Let's hear it. Okay, thank you one and all for your hard work fighting in the first Punic War. Would have been nice if you'd won. Maybe tried a little harder. But
bro, you literally were the one who said to dismantle the fleet and make them merchant ships again. This was literally your fault. You guys literally jumped the gun and started quitting on the war before you guys even got any kind of peace treaty or any kind of chance, or anything, right? This is literally your fault. I literally have no. I literally don't even know what to tell you, man. A lot of the mercenaries would change size or whatever, but literally, you literally jumped the gun and started turning your entire fleet back into merchant ships. You're still in the war and you start converting 2/3 of your fleet back into merchant, bro? This is your fault. You have no way to blame but yourself.
This isn't the finger-pointing convention. I know you all have one thing on your minds.
Payment.
Hey, when are we all getting paid? Remember you lost your... Okay. Jim, why don't you tell them? I'm not telling them, you tell them. Ugh. Look, you're not getting paid. We lost the first Punic War and owed the Romans a ton of reparations. Of course we can't pay you in full. Let's burn this place to the ground! Hey! Don't burn this place to the ground. Come on, fellas. Will killing us really make you feel better about your money? Yes. Way to go, sir. Shut up, Jim. You're fired. I guess that makes 2 of us. Huh?
Jesus. OverSimplified presents the second Punic War. Okay. I'm actually kind of happy about this.
Yes. Way to go, sir. Shut up, Jim. You're fired. I guess that makes 2 of us. Huh?
That makes me feel good. He had that coming. That guy was an awful leader. In the first Punic War, he kept telling all his citizens that they were worthless and stupid, and we're basically trying to make them constantly panic. Oh, we're so screwed. We got nothing going for us. We're all gonna starve, except for me, because I got a bunch of food in my palace or whatever. And then it was the same guy who pulled out his 2/3 of his fleet during, not before even getting a peace treaty with the Romans. Turned back in the merchant ships because he started getting fucking greedy. Or started getting overconfident, which cost him the first Punic War. And now they're in great debt and they can't pay the mercenaries. So now the mercenaries are pissed and so he had it coming. The Second Punic War.
The First Punic War. Carthage's disgruntled mercenaries, left unpaid for all their hard work, revolted.
Yeah, they're
and
pissed.
Carthage found itself caught up in an extremely destructive mercenary war. The panicked Carthaginians hired more mercenaries to fight the mercenaries they couldn't afford to pay.
Bruh. You literally hired more mercenaries to fight the mercenaries that were rebelling because you didn't pay them? Jesus Christ. This is dumb on all kinds of stages.
And Carthage came dangerously close to collapse.
Yeah, probably.
All the while, across the water, there was Rome. Ha! Look
Eyeing up an opportunity. Like, bro, this is literally a direct opportunity to go conquer more land.
at those morons. We just kicked their ass in the First Punic War, and now their own mercenaries are revolting. Haha, yeah. Wait, First Punic War? You mean there's gonna be a second one? Well, we're definitely taking advantage of this situation. So almost certainly, yes. The Romans did in fact take advantage of the situation. Amongst the chaos, rebels on the Carthaginian island of Sardinia sent out a cry for help to Rome. Hot diggity dog, said the Romans. That's free real estate. And so in they went.
Yep.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's our island. Get the hell off. Hey, they requested our help. We're simply helping. Oh, no, you don't. Look, we're sending our own army to deal with the rebels, okay? But just to be clear, we're not trying to start a fight with you, so, don't declare war on us or anything. War! We surrender! Great. And as part of the peace treaty, we get to keep these islands. No!
Jesus.
The Carthaginians were hopping mad. As if their humiliating loss in the First Punic War wasn't bad enough, the Romans now took advantage of their mercenary problem and stole their islands.
Yep.
This shocking land grab was pretty hard to justify, even by Roman standards. Additionally, the Romans now demanded Carthage pay them even more money on top of what was already owed. If Rome was trying to make Carthage as mad as possible, they were doing a fantastic job. The seeds of a second Punic War were being sown, and they were being watered with Carthaginian tears. Resentment in Carthage only continued to grow. Eventually,
Carthage is
solved their
pissed.
mercenary problem thanks to Carthaginian military genius and hero of the First Punic War, Hamilcar
Barca.
He sorted those naughty mercenaries out with some good old-fashioned atrocities.
Crucifixions.
And the destructive mercenary war was over. Still, all was not well in Carthage. Mere decades ago, they were the top dogs in the Western
Their empire, yeah, Rome's taken a bunch of their territory. Their fleet is a shell of its former self at this point. They're in serious debt. They went from one of the richest nations in the world at the time to a nation deeply in debt to their rivals. Like the empire, their empire is in shambles at the moment.
Now, after the crushing defeat in the First Punic War and a huge bill to pay the Romans, Carthage was well and truly under Rome's thumb. What on earth were they supposed to do? If they wanted any chance at regaining their former strength, there was one thing they needed now, more than anything.
A victory.
Money. But as long as they owed Rome $1 bazillion, there was nothing they could do. Fortunately for them, amongst their ranks, there was one big hunk of a man with one big clump of a brain.
Hannibal?
Me! Hamilcar Barca!
Yes.
Wait, why do you all have the exact same voice?
That's weird.
I have it too! That's right. Hero of the First Punic War. Greatest general alive. And the poster above my bed.
Oh.
Hamilcar Barca had an idea. All right, we need money?
The man's a genius. The man's one of the greatest military minds of the ancient world, and probably up there among one of the greatest of all time. And not to mention, he's the father of literally a legend in Hannibal. And Hannibal himself is also one of the greatest military minds and generals of all time as well. like, man, like if there's a way to get money, it's definitely to go try and get a victory somewhere else, get some conquest, maybe get some gold somewhere, start paying back the Romans that way, and then start getting your economy back on its feet, and then from there you start rebuilding.
Well, I've got one word for you: Spain. An area filled with
I
lucrative.
mean, it wasn't Spain yet, but Hispania, yeah. But yeah, it was not Spain yet.
Silver mines from which the silver would flow like a river, and our pockets would be stuffed like Tony's mother at a buffet. Hey,
Damn.
So here's my proposal. You send me with an army to Spain. I'll expand our territory, get those silver mines up and running, and we'll be able to pay the Romans back in no time. Okay, but just to check, you're not secretly raising the money to go on a bloodthirsty revenge spree against Rome, are you? Because we can't afford that. Hanno, my dear, I'm simply going to pay them back.
Nice.
Well, that wasn't reassuring. Few in Carthage were as bitter about their loss in the First Punic War as Hamilcar Barca. 98% of his brain matter had been reallocated to thoughts of revenge.
Yeah.
He was also fed up with the Carthaginian politicians for what he deemed a cowardly betrayal when they surrendered at the end of the last war. And so for Hamilcar, going to Spain meant being able to act independently from the weak Carthaginian government, building his own strength, and then perhaps somewhere down the line, revenge. However, he wasn't going to Spain by himself.
Bring your son.
Hannibal? Yes, father? Would you like to come with me to build an empire in Spain? Oh boy, would I! Barbara, mind if I take our 9-year-old son with me? I want to implant an intense hatred of Rome in him and prepare him for a glorious campaign of vengeance. Just try not to traumatize him, dear. No promises.
Oh, well.
The young boy Hannibal would accompany his father, watching, learning. Boy, you see that city over there?
That's
father?
Rome.
That is Rome. Do you know what we do to Romans?
Murder 'em?
No, father. We hate them, Hannibal. We hate them with every fiber of our being. But why, father? Can't I just play with my Digimons? No, son!
Come on.
They took everything from us. Our land, our wealth, our pride. Those animals. I'll tear them limb from limb. I'll burn their pathetic city to the ground.
Damn.
Dad? I'm sorry, son. I've just never been so proud. Keep going. I'll slaughter their people. I'll cut off their faces and wear them as masks.
Oh.
I love you, son. After taking Hannibal to the Temple of Baal and having him swear an oath never to be a friend of Rome, off Dad and son went for their lovely beach holiday in Spain. But Spain was already inhabited by many tribespeople.
True.
And when Hamilcar suddenly showed up in their territory, they were like, "Hey, who the hell are you? What are you doing here?" "I'm teaching my son how to become a warrior like me." "Aw, well that's sweet."
Nice.
"Well then, little guy, let's see what you got."
Holy shit.
As Hamilcar got to work fighting the tribes of Iberia and expanding Carthaginian influence, Hannibal became a child of war, even earning battle scars from a young age.
Damn.
And he grew to become a great military leader himself, making his father very proud. "I love you so much, son." "Dad, not in front of the enemy." "You killed that guy so well, son." The Barcas successfully consolidated Carthaginian power, got those silver mines up and running,
Nice.
and were sending buckets of cash back to a money-starved Carthage. And symbolizing Carthage's regrowing strength, a beautiful new city would eventually be
Carthage.
founded in Spain. New Carthage, with a magnificent palace at its center. Carthage is back, baby! What in the name of Apollo is going on here? Ah, Romans! Flowing silver mines? Dancing elephants? What are you up to, Hamilcar? "I'm simply gathering the money to pay you back." Oh, okay then. Or are you rebuilding strength to go on a bloodthirsty revenge spree? Like I said, Claudius, I'm simply trying to pay you back.
Oh,
Aw,
they're
you
hugging.
guys are hugging.
That's adorable.
No, we're not. I was.
Oh.
I was hugging. Hamilcar had practically carved out a kingdom for himself in Spain, free from the meddling Carthaginian politicians. His power was becoming immense. But Dad, yes, my son? I'm confused. Are we really simply paying the Romans back? We're not gonna go on a bloodthirsty revenge spree? Of course we are! I'm just saying that to get the Romans off our backs. Listen, here's the most important life lesson I have for you. Vengeance is everything. An all-encompassing thirst for vengeance is great for your mental health.
Huh.
Are you still confused? No,
A little bit.
I get it now. But what if the Romans find out what we're up to?
You're
They
fucked.
won't find out. Why? Well, Hannibal, because I
Have NordVPN. Yep.
a child of war and the Carthaginian conquest of Spain. The Carthaginian recovery had been staggeringly quick, and Rome was seriously alarmed. But they were also preoccupied with ongoing wars elsewhere, including an expansionist war to the north, where they were enslaving thousands of northern Celts.
Gotcha.
So for now, to keep Carthage in check, the Romans insisted on a new treaty. See this river? The two sides agreed that everything above it was in Rome's sphere of influence, while beneath it was Carthage. Under no circumstances were the Carthaginians to expand north of that river. But for now, Hamilcar and son were living it up. Well, son, here's to many more years of successful campaigning in Spain. Now, if you'll excuse me, I just have to go fight those guys.
What?
See you later, son. I love you.
Hamilcar? No!
What the? Oh, crap. I drowned? Oh, well. Always remember, son.
No, Hamilcar!
You
Barca!
are
Vengeance.
vengeance.
Hamilcar! Barca, no!
My browsing history.
What?
Hamilcar Barca was tragically ambushed at a river and
Damn.
drowned. His son-in-law, and possibly also his lover, no further
What?
questions, took charge for a while. But he too was later assassinated,
Damn.
leaving finally a 26-year-old Hannibal in charge of the Carthaginian armies in Spain. Sources say the men readily accepted him as their leader. He chose to suffer the same hardships as his men. He lived in the same conditions, was often the first into battle and the last one out. And it also helped that he looked a lot like his dad.
Oh,
He had the total respect of his men. If he
Nice.
said jump, they said how high. If he said tuck me in, they said how tight.
oh.
If he said talk to a girl without peeing your pants,
That's
they
impossible,
said,
sir.
That's impossible. Nobody can do that.
Yeah, that's
An
hard.
army that would follow him anywhere would be crucial for exacting his vengeance against Rome. Hannibal's army had become a strong and loyal.
Is that Hulk Hogan? Guess what, brother? Hulkamania running wild all over you, brother. Ooh, yeah. Get a macho man, Randy Savage. That's Randy Savage. I guess we'll there, brother. Nothing like some Hulk Hogan. Nothing like some ancient Hulk Hogan. Get you swole. Elephants there chilling too. He's hanging out. But dude, it sucks that Hannibal Barca just fucking got ambushed. Oh man, I liked him. He was cool.
Fighting force, and that was making a certain nation very uncomfortable.
Romans.
Seeing Carthage re-strengthen so quickly was not something Rome had expected, yet here they were, paying off their debts and expanding their territory. It didn't feel very much like Carthage was under Rome's thumb at all, and Rome wanted to put an end to it. Tensions were strung tighter than your liar's G-string, and
Oh.
all it would take was one incident to trigger all-out war. And in 219 BC, a city in Spain would find itself at the very center of that fateful incident, Saguntum. Remember that treaty declaring everything south of this river to be Carthage's sphere of influence?
Yep.
Well, Saguntum should therefore obviously be Carthaginian, right? Wrong!
Oh.
Saguntum had actually scored itself an informal alliance with Rome
Nice.
after Rome had helped it with an internal dispute. With Carthaginian encroachment, Saguntum began to fear for its independence, and Rome declared itself Saguntum.
Saying Guntum? Saying Guntul? Venetian community. In Spain. Venetian colonies in Spain. 3 colonies in Iberia. Excuse me. Pardon me. Huh. Alright. Best known for the remains of the ancient Iberian and Roman city Saguntum. 219, it triggered the Second Punic War between Carthaginians and Romans.
Saguntum's protector. But this clearly went against the Ebro River Treaty. So what on earth was Rome doing? Were the Saguntines and the Romans truly just BFFs? It's possible. Or was Rome deliberately trying to interfere with Hannibal's Spanish expansion and maintain a staging post for a future war with Carthage? More likely. And Hannibal certainly viewed this Rome-Saguntum alliance as an outrage. Yet another example of Roman arrogance. At first, he left Saguntum alone. But having learnt from his father to hate all things Roman, and
True.
having inherited his father's dream of bringing Rome to its knees,
What the
more
fuck's
and
happening?
more, Hannibal may have begun to see Saguntum as an opportunity. Could this controversial alliance be just what devilish little Hannibal needed to kickstart a second war
Kill the
with
Grinch.
Rome and restore Carthaginian dominance? It's even possible that Rome were also using Saguntum to goad Hannibal into a fight, so they could go and kick him out of Spain. And as the two giants began gearing up for round 2, the poor people of Saguntum had no idea that they were about to be crushed in the collision. Hey! Your alliance with Saguntum is an insult, and we won't stand for it. They're our friends, Hannibal, and if you lay a finger on them, it'll be an act of war. Yeah, Hannibal, back the hell off. War, eh? I was thinking I might just besiege their city and massacre their people. I hope you do, Hannibal.
Oh.
Find out what happens. Yeah, we hope you do, Hannibal. Wait, what? Maybe I will. Go ahead, kill them all. Okay then. Fine. Okay, guess I'll do
Looking
just
forward to
that.
it.
Consul? We look forward to it. Consul? You're gonna protect us though, right, Consul? Consul!
Oh no.
Oh no! To top it all off, when the Saguntine people made the genius decision of raiding into Carthaginian territory,
you idiot.
enough was enough. In an action that was guaranteed to provoke the Romans into war, Hannibal besieged the city. The siege of Saguntum lasted 8 cruel months before Hannibal broke through the city defenses and turned Saguntum into a killing field. It was a massacre. What the hell? Tell me I didn't just catch you massacring our friends, the Saguntines. Well, Consul, if you like the Saguntines so much, perhaps you should sug on these nuts.
Oh my god!
Hearing word of the attack on Saguntum, Rome was understandably in an uproar, and all eyes were now fixated on what would happen next, as Rome sent a delegation to Carthage, led by one of the most highly esteemed Roman senators, Fabius Maximus. He demanded an answer for Hannibal's sins. All right, listen up, scum. You've got a rogue general in Spain attacking a Roman ally. What are we supposed to do about it? Well, there shouldn't have even been a Roman ally in Spain. You're the aggressor here. Hand Hannibal over to us as a criminal so we can punish him severely. No, yes, no, no. Look, I hold in the folds of my toga both peace and war.
What?
Which one should I let drop? Whichever one you want. Then I choose.
What the hell?
The Second Punic War had begun. Pack it up, boys. We've got him. We already destroyed these clowns once, and we were the
Destroyed is very, 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 very bold choice of words. You guys barely, and I mean, you guys, but you got Rome, you beat Carthage by the skin of your teeth. Like, and the only reason you guys won is because homie over there in Carthage decided to take 2/3 of his fleet and turn them back into merchant ships. Like, you guys barely won the first Punic War. Don't get ahead of yourself. You should never underestimate your your rivals, your enemies, your opponents ever. That's how you get your teeth kicked in. Like, saying that you are superior, and yes, you got the victory. Yes, you conquered territory from them. But you never underestimate another superpower like Carthage, a nation that's one of the most powerful nations in the world at the time. Like, bruh, you were just asking to get your asses kicked.
underdogs. Now we're the overdogs? Hot dogs. Exactly.
Hot dogs.
This
Huh?
is gonna be easy. Here's the plan. Consul Longus, you take your army and sail straight for Carthage.
Okay.
Burn that city to the ground. And Consul Scipio, you just head on over to Iberia and make sure this Hannibal guy doesn't do anything crazy. I mean, what's he gonna do? Cross the Alps?
Yeah. Oh,
We're
shit.
going to what? Cross the Alps. We're going to what? I just told you.
Cross the
Hannibal will
Alps.
freeze to death. Trust me, Jerome. The Romans are expecting us to fight the same way we did last time. Passively, taking no initiative. They think it's gonna be easy.
That's what they
So
said.
this time, we have to be aggressive. We have to go on the attack. It sickens me to say this, but this time, we have to be a little more Roman.
Oh,
You mean
no.
We're gonna take poops and baths together? But I'm insecure about my hairy legs.
Oh.
No, I'm saying this time, we're gonna take the fight to them. Think about it. Rome thinks they're simply going to invade us and win the war. So when they suddenly
So you're gonna
find
invade them?
themselves being invaded from the north, they'll freak out. Like Tony's mother, when the buffet runs out of shrimp.
Jesus.
Got to admit,
Poor
it's actually
Tony.
kind of genius. And my hairy legs will insulate me from the cold. That's the spirit.
Yeah.
Hannibal, you have my sword and my spear and my legs.
Those are some gnarly legs.
Hannibal's plan, a daring alpine trek to surprise the Romans, was a bold but risky strategy. If it paid off, he could catch the Romans with their pants down, but he could also end up losing a ton of men and supplies in the hostile mountain conditions.
Fair.
Nevertheless, in 218
It's a high risk, high reward. I guess. Yeah, it was a high risk, high reward type of situation.
BC, with a fire in his eyes and some vengeance in his belly,
Oh.
Hannibal brought his force of almost 100,000 men across the Ebro River. They spent months on the road, trekking through the cold, hostile mountain conditions. And when they finally reached the other side, they said, "Hooray! We did it! We crossed the Alps." No, those were the Pyrenees. Those are the Alps.
Oh no, brother. That's like 8 times the size of the previous one you guys were going through. Gulp. Same.
After
Same.
crossing the Pyrenees, the army then had to pass through southern Gaul, a
Oh,
vast territory
no.
filled with tribespeople,
Mare de
many of
France.
whom were hostile to Hannibal's presence. His journey to the Alps was an ordeal in itself, as he was forced to fight his way through and incurred pretty hefty losses before even reaching the mountains.
Damn.
His plan was almost stopped in its tracks entirely, as the Roman consul Scipio, on his way to Iberia, discovered Hannibal was right on his
Oh
doorstep.
no.
Suddenly, Hannibal's journey became a race as he rushed to get his massive army across the vast Rhone River before the Romans could intercept him.
So are you just gonna have to? I think you have to kill Scipio now. And his men because if they get because they spot you and yeah they're chasing you looking for like wouldn't it have been smarter to like retreat back home to where and reporting this information to like your politicians, your leaders? Like I feel like going after him is the bold thing, but it's also like you're risking it all because like you have the information. So it would be smart to be like a race back to Rome, so you could like tell like your generals and your soldiers like, hey, or sorry, your generals and your politicians be like, yo, we saw Hannibal, he's coming for us. He's taking the Alps. Like this seems risky, especially if it is like if you lose this battle and they kill Scipio and his men, and then it just get like this. This is like a really high risk, low reward type of thing right here. Because yeah, you can capture Hannibal potentially, but at the same time you die, and then it's like Hannibal can have free reign to get to the Alps and get to Rome.
The crossing was chaotic, with the panicking elephants causing several men to drown.
Damn.
And the first combat of the war occurred when small scouting parties from each side encountered one another. When Scipio finally caught up to Hannibal's position, what he found was an empty Carthaginian camp. Hannibal had slipped through his fingers.
Oh.
The Roman consul Scipio felt the weight of the situation. Quite unbelievably, Hannibal was going to cross the Alps into Italy, and the Romans had no idea where he would emerge. For the first time, a Carthaginian force had the Roman homeland under threat. Scipio sent his men onto Iberia as planned, but he himself rushed home to raise a new army so that if Hannibal survived the crossing, Scipio would be there, waiting.
How old is Scipio? Like he looks ancient. Like he looks like he shouldn't really be on a battlefield anymore. Like Scipio looks like he's like 75. I'm about to kick the bucket any time now. Like I'm sorry, buddy, but it might be time to hang up your armor and get moved to like the get moved to become a senator or something.
Would you look at that, boys? We're here, the Alps.
Nice.
Although it is a little later than I expected. Yeah, it's kind of chilly.
Is that Juan Cena? Me 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 me. Bwah, bwah, bwah. Belief in yourself.
Really? We'll set up camp here and wait for spring, right? It's way too cold, right? Hannibal?
Nope, move on.
Hannibal's famous crossing of the Alps was brutal.
Damn.
It was already autumn, and the men suffered terribly. It was cold. Men would fall off the sides of icy
Oh
cliffs.
god.
They starved. They fell off the sides of icy
Oh
cliffs.
no.
Some sources say they had to eat their pack animals and would finish off dying comrades in order to take their clothes for extra warmth.
Jesus.
And then they would fall off the sides of icy cliffs.
Oh no.
Imagine an army of 50,000 men with all of their horses, supplies, and 37 elephants trying to.
Like, I wonder if because like elephants, like I wonder if you like go into the Alps today, right? Because I know this is like over 2,000 years ago, right? It's like 2,200 plus years ago, right? But didn't some like the elephants fall into like the Alps too? Like they fell off into like the Alps. So like, if you went into the Alps, would you like still find like bones and like remains of like armor and stuff like that from like the Carthaginian army and like the dead elephants and that type of stuff? Like I have no idea. Like maybe wrong. Maybe all the Alps have been explored and maybe like everything's been like I have no idea. No conclusive evidence. There's no conclusive of armor or evidence were found in Christian are believed to have crossed the Western Alps horses and elephants around 2,200 years ago. However, the exact route that presents such evidence remains unclear. Excavated bone may have belonged to one of Hannibal's elephants. Yeah, I never understand that thing when people are like, "Oh, well, bones degrade," but they really don't. Like the flesh, the flesh breaks down, but bones, they last a long time. Like when people are like, "Oh, bones break down," and yeah, they do, but there's still always like remnant. Like bones are like they last a long time, like a very long time. Like we have bones that and the skeletons of our ancestors that are millions of years old in like museums, that type of stuff. So saying that there's no bones from 2,000 years ago is kind of stupid if you think about it. I'm not gonna say you're gonna find a full skeleton of like their men or like the elephants. You'd think you'd find like some kind of bones or bone fragments or some kind of remains, you know?
To navigate the most hostile mountain range in Europe. And it wasn't just nature that they were up against. Tribespeople lived in the mountains.
Yep.
And they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
They didn't like
A
it.
tribe approached Hannibal and said, "Hey man, geez, that's some nice armor. What is that, gold? Man, I'd really like that armor. Hey boss, they've got food as well. Shut up, be cool. Hey, why don't you let us guide you through this narrow gorge? We're not gonna kill you or nothing. Just walk right on through there. We're not gonna kill you. It's just right this way.
That's trap.
We're not gonna kill you." Hannibal's army were forced to fight their way through the gorge as massive boulders rained down on them from above.
Damn.
Some clever reorganization of his line helped them survive, and they were able to fend off the opportunistic tribes. But losses from the constant attacks were heavy. As the journey continued, men who went over the sides would get stuck on the ice sheets below and had to make a grisly choice between starving to death or just getting it over with. When the deeply demoralized army reached the summit and rested for a couple days, Hannibal tried to lift their spirits with a rousing speech. "Look, men, down there, it's Rome. These plains stretching out in front of you are bountiful with food to eat and Romans to kill. Move, Bessie! Look, you have just climbed the walls of Rome. The hard part is over. From here on out, it's all downhill. And nobody else will die. Except for them.
God.
The rest of us here, no one dies. Starting now."
Damn.
Okay, let's go. Oh, for goodness sake! As it turned out, the descent was as deadly as the way up.
Yeah.
With the cold really starting to set in, the path became even more narrow. And at one point, the men spent 3 days in the freezing cold, repairing a collapsed road. When they finally reached the bottom, Hannibal said, "Look, guys, we did it."
That was...
Well, I thought it went really well. When Hannibal left Spain, he had about 100,000 men.
Okay.
By the time he reached the Italian plains, his numbers had dwindled to about 26,000.
Jesus.
He was now caught in enemy territory, without a supply line or source of reinforcements. And any elephants who had survived to this point were almost certainly traumatized.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So what on earth was Hannibal up to? This supposed military genius had just led a starving and weakened army right into enemy territory. Any modern general who lost half their men to mountains would be immediately fired and possibly even depantsed on live TV. Here's the thing. While Hannibal may not have planned on losing quite so many men, he had almost certainly expected considerable losses, and he always had a plan for how to replace them. Need men? Northern Italy was full of men. Big, burly Celtic men. All the men Hannibal would ever need to beat off Rome.
What?
These Celts were filled with resentment, having only recently been conquered by Rome. Hannibal hoped to be seen as a liberator, convince the Celts to cut ties with Rome, and instead join him in crushing Rome. That way, he could gain a source of reinforcements and supplies right in Rome's backyard. But sir, in order to win the loyalty of the Celts, we would need to make a seriously favorable impression on them. How do we get them to like us? Kill them.
What?
One of Hannibal's first actions in Italy was to obliterate a nearby tribe who wouldn't join him. This sent a clear message to all the other tribes. It was his wrath they should fear, not Rome's. The realization that a Carthaginian army had just invaded them must have been shocking for the Romans. But when they looked at this ragtag group, broken by the Alps, they couldn't have felt very intimidated. However, Hannibal was now in Italy, and he was about to embark on one of the most astonishing military campaigns in all of human history. The Romans may not have known it yet, but there was now a monster loose in their territory, and he was vying for Roman blood.
Damn. That's crazy.
This video was made
Second Punic War, Part 2. I told you it's gonna be a long video today. We got another one after this one too. We're knocking them all out today. All the Punic War episodes out today. So it's gonna be a long one. So sit back, grab some snacks and drinks if you're all out. If you need to go run to the restroom, we're about to hop right into Part 2 of the Second Punic War.
Scipio hit the ground running. In
Oh.
typical Roman fashion, he marched his army straight at the enemy, and Hannibal began preparing for his first combat with Rome on Italian soil. Before the battle, Hannibal wanted to inspire his men, so he staged a gladiatorial death match between captured Celt prisoners, with the winner getting prizes and
just knocked off his fucking head. Watch this. I didn't notice this at first, but they're here just doing bopping it out, and all of a sudden,
between captured Celt prisoners,
his head's gone.
winner
His head goes right there.
prizes.
He was like, Team Rocket's blasting off again. Ding. Exactly what happened there. His head went Team Rocket flying.
And freedom. He then explained that the whole thing was a metaphor. A metaphor?
Oh.
For what? You! These warriors are you! You're trapped in Italy with no escape. Your only choice now is to fight and win. What about the dead guy? That's you if you don't win.
Oh.
And the prizes? That's what you stand to gain by winning. And the fact that I've soiled myself in all this excitement? That...
What?
No, that's not part of the metaphor. Okay.
Did you just
Hannibal
piss
also
yourself?
smashed in the head of a goat.
Oh.
Again, for inspiration. Scipio, on the other hand, now arriving in the area, opted for the more classic route of a rousing pre-battle speech. Look at them, men. Weak, starved by the Alps, while we are the strongest military in the world. This will be easy, like 10,000 horse-sized ducks fighting a baby-sized baby.
What?
It'll be like Mike Tyson in his prime, kicking a baby. A tug of war between...
Wait, how do you guys know Mike Tyson? He hasn't been born for over 2,000 years. Yeah, like two millennia. Like you don't know what Mike Tyson is.
10 sumo wrestlers and a...
But you guys don't even, sumo wrestling hasn't been invented yet. How would you know what a sumo wrestler is?
Help me out here, Ralph. A baby, sir? Yes, that's it. A baby. The point is, there is absolutely no possible way we could lose a battle this easy. So, if everybody's ready, on my mark, charge!
It's not gonna be that easy though. Hannibal OP.
The Battle of Ticinus was over almost as soon as it had begun, as the Romans found themselves completely outmatched by Hannibal's famed lightning-fast Numidian cavalry, a key element in Hannibal's devastating...
The Numidians, that's right. They got them from the first Punic War, right? The Numidians, they gave like a bunch of cavalry. They're like, considered like the best in the world. And like horseback riding, right? And make some of the best cavalry in the world at the time. Like, that's crazy. I forgot, bro, that's cool that they brought that back for like, that's genius.
Double envelopment tactics. In the chaos, Scipio was wounded. Thankfully, according to some ancient writers, his handsome 17-year-old son, Scipio the Younger, saw his father fall.
Oh.
Scipio the Younger supposedly saved his father, and in the process, earned himself a lot of daddy's kisses.
Oh.
The Romans ended up fleeing the area, destroying the bridge behind them as they went. For a nation so overtly confident in victory, Believing Hannibal to be an easy kill, the Romans found themselves running away with their tail between their legs. It was humiliating. And you know who thought so as well? The Celts. They began flocking to Hannibal's side, just as he'd hoped.
Bro, that victory really just... That victory was huge. The Celts are going to turn tides and be like, you know what? Let's get our chance to get our independence back. We're going to join you, Hannibal. You kick their asses, we'll help you out.
Even Celtic troops fighting for Rome in the Roman camp began to reconsider. Man, I'm thinking we should try to join Hannibal. I hear you. Maybe we should bring him a gift. What do you think he'd like?
Maybe the head of somebody? Of Roman?
Oh, I know. Hey, Hannibal. We want to join your side, and we brought you a present. A gift? For me? I hope it's Roman heads. Oh, please. Oh, please be Roman heads.
Roman heads!
How did you know? Running away from Hannibal was humiliating enough, but having dozens of Romans beheaded in the night, now that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Ticinus had been a relatively small battle, but the psychological impact it had early on was huge.
Sorry.
Battle.
What are the stats? 6,000 cavalry. Okay. 6,000 cavalry, 3,600 cavalry, plus a light infantry. Light, heavy. Damn. So yeah, it was a smaller battle, but it was a battle that meant a lot, and it turned the Celts to the Carthaginians' side, which means that Carthage's numbers just skyrocketed in terms of manpower.
But the psychological impact it had early on was huge, and it was only just a taste of what Hannibal was capable of. Despite the shocking initial loss, however, Rome still didn't seem to fully understand the danger posed by the monster now loose in their territory. The Senate was full of excuses. It's those traitorous Celts. That's why we lost. Yeah, and it was a cavalry battle. Wait until Hannibal faces our almighty legions. And our consul was bold. Once he faces our other fully follicled consul, then he'll really pee his pants. That other consul, Longus, had been in the south all this time, preparing to invade Africa. He had seen some success, even capturing Malta. But then he heard the news. Hannibal's in Italy? And I'm being ordered home? But I was gonna be the big boy. I was gonna invade Carthage and win the war. Well, you can be a big boy at home. No! Does somebody need a nap, sir? No! And so Longus brought his army on the long journey north.
Teddy Bear's
When he
picnic.
arrived in the area to decisively neutralize Hannibal, the two consuls joined their forces together, creating a double consular army. But the two consuls weren't exactly on the same page. Having a nice rest there, old man? I'm wounded, Longus. Pathetic. You don't understand. He's more dangerous than we thought. Maybe for you. Whoops. Listen, we can't just march straight at him like we normally do. We need to train our men through the winter, and we'll try again in spring. Sorry, I don't take advice from a bowling ball. Hey, I'll kick your ass, Longus. Any day now. I'm coming. Just you wait. Oh, Scipio, you feeble old man. Scipio was apparently quite cautious after his recent encounter with Hannibal, while Longus, typically Roman, couldn't wait to give Hannibal a swirly.
Oh no.
So who would get their way? Well, when two consuls joined their forces, it turned out the Romans had an interesting system in place. They would each take turns being the one in charge. Consul 1 would lead one day, then Consul 2 the next. Back and forth, back and forth. As you can imagine, when the two consuls didn't agree, things didn't go so well. In this case, due to Scipio's injury, Longus probably assumed even more command than normal. Hannibal had Celtic spies in the Roman camp.
Why are you playing
He
Monopoly?
fully understood the Roman system and Longus's hot-headed nature, and he knew he could exploit it. For goodness sake! What's wrong, sir?
How do you get a
I'm trying to
smartphone?
order some pizza,
What?
but I keep getting fed all these personalized.
How do you have a smartphone? Why do you have a phone? And you guys want to know what pizza is? NordVPN. Alright, no, Incognia, I guess.
Smashing the Romans in battle in order to maintain the loyalty of the Celts. And so he was eager to fight another battle. The combined Roman force possibly outnumbered him, so he carefully crafted a clever trap, and he made sure to spring it while Longus was still in charge. The plan began with his army.
They're playing
getting
DS,
an early
too.
night's sleep. All right, boys. Time for lights out. Sorry, but we got a big day ahead of us.
True.
Tomorrow, we're gonna massacre the Romans.
Yeah.
Good night, boys. Dream of revenge.
Man, what a good general. Oh, I got a little plushie. Got a little OverSimplified plush over here. Got a little teddy bear.
Gorzog.
Oh.
Send out the cavalry.
The fuck is Gorzog?
That night, Hannibal's Numidian cavalry made their way over to the Roman camp, arriving just before dawn. Hey, Romans! Wait.
Isn't it kind of unfair that they have Gorzog, a literal fucking orc, on their team?
Wakey! What the? What's going on? Hey, Longus, your butt smells like a butt. Scipio, awaken the troops. Longus, these playground insults are clearly meant to lure you out. Well, it's working. Send out the troops.
This is
Longus,
dumb.
It's clearly a trap, and I'm falling for it.
Of course you are,
Hey,
Longest.
guys, wake up. You're heading out for battle. What? But we haven't had breakfast. We're skipping breakfast.
Damn.
I don't think you can do that.
Yeah,
As
it's a little
the Romans
unfair.
hurried out of camp, the Numidians began luring them back to the Carthaginian camp, where these gentle angels were just awakening from
Aw.
their slumber. Eat up, boys. We're having
Oh, wait,
pancakes.
man. Yeah.
While the Carthaginians were enjoying their hearty breakfast, the starving Romans were still on their way. Hurry up! We have to catch those Numidians. Hey, why have you stopped marching? Longus, there's a freezing river in front of us. Well, get your gluteus maximus in the water!
Jesus, Longest.
All right, boys. Time to lather up. This oil will insulate you from the cold.
Oh.
It also smells like lavender.
Aw.
There's the Carthaginian camp. Get ready to fight.
Dude, Hannibal, he's like taking care of his tribe. He's like, alright, guys, well rested. Got plenty to eat. You guys are all oiled up. Maybe it's the heat in your body and it make you smell good. Like, yo, alright, boys, we're gonna go kick their asses.
Men, sir, I think the water from the river is beginning to ice over. I can't move. Oh, I'm sorry. You thought war would be fun? Sitting around a nice hot campfire playing Truth or Dare with your friends?
Yeah.
Welcome to the real world! Truth, who do you like? Sharon?
Jesus.
Hey, look guys, the Romans are here.
Oh, hey, guys.
Having perfectly orchestrated events so that his enemy was cold, tired, and hungry, while his men were well rested and covered in oil.
Oh.
When the two sides engaged
That's
one
that's
another,
nice.
the Romans were in no condition to fight.
Literally.
And the cherry on top, the previous night,
They were literally starving, freezing to death, and like barely got any sleep last night. Like, bruh. What was Longest do? That guy's an idiot.
Hannibal had sent out an elite force of men led by his brother to go and hide behind
He had a
bush.
brother?
They suddenly sprung out, encircling the exhausted Romans, who were then cut to pieces.
Hey, got him.
Once again, Hannibal's superior cavalry and double envelopment tactics had flummoxed the Romans. But the key word at Trebia was control. Hannibal used his intel on the enemy and the environment of the battlefield to carefully control the conditions.
It might seem simple, but that's very intelligent. Like, you take an opportunity, like, you use this as your, like, use it as an opportunity. And he's doing it right now. Like, he's gaining victories, which is bringing more of the tribes people into his camp. He's taking care of his troops, you know. Making sure they're fed, making sure they're getting well rested, making sure they're happy and safe until wartime. While Longus is like abusing his soldiers, making sure you know, like you know, if you don't feed your troops and if you're like trying to rush them, like yeah, of course you're gonna lose this fight. Like they're all tired, they're cold, and they're hungry. While the Carthaginians are all well rested, they had a good breakfast, and they were lathered up in oil to help, you know, keep them warm.
Of battle, creating lots of little advantages for himself that paved the way to success. And concealing troops for an ambush? All of these things are what make Hannibal the genius he's remembered as today.
He's one of the best of all time.
As for Longus, he managed to escape the battlefield with a small number of troops.
Jesus.
Disgraced. He didn't want the Senate to find out what had happened, and he began obscuring communications back to Rome.
That's trade.
Longest.
That's
Where have
treasonous.
you been? We've been looking for you. Nowhere in particular. Longest, 30,000 men are missing. Do you know where they are? They're taking a bath. 30,000 men? All in a bath? Yes. Longest, what's under that rug? Aurora Borealis? Aurora Borealis? Oh, well, that's my consulship over. Good luck with Hannibal. Bye. Trebia had been a disaster for the Romans. And as even more Celts began flocking to Hannibal, Rome largely lost its control over Cisalpine Gaul. In Rome, complacency turned to alarm. Hannibal had outwitted them on their own soil and inflicted a costly defeat. But with that, Scipio and Longus's terms as consul were over. They were replaced with 2 new consuls.
So did Longus not get punished at all? Like he literally lost a major battle. He Longus literally hid the fact that 30,000 men were dead, and it was trying to obscure communication with Rome. Like, bro, like that's like really nothing. If somebody in Carthage is dead, they've been crucified.
Servilius and Flaminius. The Romans may now have begun to realize the trouble they were in and the genius Hannibal had shown in invading Italy. The Romans had expected to be the ones controlling this war. Remember, they thought they were going to invade Carthage.
The other way around now.
Their plans lay in ruins, and they were levying 11 new legions to deal with the threat. Hannibal had completely redefined the war. But Hannibal had a little problem of his own. Things had gone well so far, but the Celts were notoriously fickle, and Hannibal needed to ensure he maintained their alliance and his base of support in Italy. Any Celts he captured fighting for Rome, he treated extremely well and allowed them to return to their homes. But the longer he hung around in their territory, eating all their food and leaving beard trimmings in their sinks, the more resentful they may become. They wanted to go south and plunder some Roman booty, and Hannibal also hoped to sway Rome's other Italian allies in the south to his side. So from here, the path was clear. Hannibal had to move south. Just one problem. There were 2 main routes Hannibal could take to move south. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly where the 2 new Roman consuls had taken fortified positions.
Great.
If Hannibal tried to move on them, he'd be fighting from a disadvantaged position and could be bottled in. There is a third option. Ooh, tell me. We could move through this vast impassable marshland flooded with dirty, stinky, disease-infested water that at times would come up to our necks.
Oh,
But
lovely.
there's no way we would attempt that, right? That'd be crazy, right?
That would be kind of crazy.
Hannibal? Hannibal's 4-day trek across the Arno marshlands was hell on earth. Almost as crazy as when he crossed the Alps. Imagine 3 full days, unable to sit or lie down, because there's nowhere to sit or lie down. Meaning 4 full days without sleep, slugging through heavy mud.
Oh,
you
God.
contract cholera, your foot falls off, and Jim Bob directly in front of you won't stop pooping in your path. In fact, everybody's pooping in your path.
Oh, God.
Some delirious, sleepless men would see clumps of mud and say, man, I could just sink into that. And then
they would.
When pack animals died, it gave nearby men a chance to rest, but only for a few moments before they were whipped back into line. Even Hannibal himself couldn't escape the torture of it. Hey, Hannibal, if we see a Starbucks, can we stop? I need to take a leak.
Jesus.
What? Geez, Hannibal. Looks like you picked up a nasty eye infection. Normally for this sort of thing, we just wash it out with some clean water. But as you can see, water everywhere, but it's full of Jim Bob's poop. No worries, Doc. I'll just take care of it myself.
God damn.
That'll be $3,000. When the now possibly one-eyed Hannibal and his army emerged from the swamp, they were shattered. But he had just managed to slip 50,000 men right past.
Bruh. Hannibal literally popped his own eye out with his sword. Bruh. The man's built different.
The Romans into rich Etrurian lands where he could replenish his supplies and his Celt allies could go crazy, securing Roman loot and booty. As fields and villages went up in
No,
flames,
not Steve.
one Roman consul couldn't help but notice The hot-headed Flaminius, feeling it was his responsibility to protect these lands, rather than waiting for his co-consul to come join him, immediately left to go chase Hannibal. Now, this Flaminius was an interesting character. He was what the Romans called a new man. He came from the lower plebeian classes of Roman society, and as a result, he reportedly had kind of a screw-you attitude to the establishment, and
Makes sense.
big old arrogant chip on his shoulder. Picture Sid Vicious wearing a toga. That's Flaminius.
Oh,
And
okay.
Hannibal, thanks to his spies, knew everything. Just as with Longus, Hannibal knew Flaminius was just the kind of man he could lure into a trap. Hannibal led Flaminius to the entrance of a narrow pass along the north shore of Lake Trasimene. Flaminius watched as Hannibal's army entered the pass. I've done it. I've spotted the enemy. Sir? That big follow us sign seems kind of like they're trying to lure you in. Yes, Gareth, and I'm taking the bait.
God
Sir,
damn it.
this really seems like a trap. Yes, Gareth, and I'm falling for it.
We've seen this
It was
before.
baiting.
This is the longest
So for
all over
now,
again.
The Romans set up camp. The two armies encamped across the lake from one another, and night fell over the two camps. In the morning, Flaminius would catch up to Hannibal, and he would be the hero of Rome. For now, the Romans got nice and comfy in their bed of Rome.
It's fuck, what was his name? The guy from the first Punic War. The guy got tortured to death because he's like, nobody breaks a promise. I can't think of his name right now. What was his name? Can't think of it right now. There's the guy. The guy's like, you never break a promise. That's going too far. That's what I hear right now. I can't think of his name right now. Fuck. It'll come to me
For
later.
now,
probably.
the Romans got nice and comfy in their beds.
Oh.
Good night, Flaminius. Good night, Rome.
Good night.
Good evening, Hannibal. During the night, Hannibal ordered total stealth. As tens of thousands of troops scaled the wooded hills above the pass, completely undetected by
Oh.
Rome's scouts. Let's go, girls. Flaminius took off across the lake shore to try to catch Hannibal. As he did, even the weather seemed to be on Hannibal's side. A thick fog rose from the surface of the lake, obscuring visibility.
Damn.
Look at this. This is perfect. The mist will obscure our approach. Hannibal will never see me coming.
About that.
Sir? Why does it sound like 50,000 Carthaginians are charging down the hill towards us? You mean 50,000 Carthaginians are charging right into my trap?
Yeah, about that.
The Romans found themselves completely hemmed in on all sides. With zero visibility in the fog, the fighting was terrifying and chaotic. Troops were pushed into the lake.
Oh yeah, wasn't this the battle where like after they were done, they said that it was like a river full or a river of blood or something like that?
In their heavy armor, where they were either cut down or drowned. And Flaminius, who likely stood out like a sore thumb
Was
in his
murdered?
consul attire, caught the attention of one Celt warrior, with his head possibly swirling with thoughts of how the Romans had decimated his homeland. According to the ancient writers, this Celt took his chance.
Heard him? Damn.
In the 3-hour-long massacre, 15,000 Romans were killed, and an equal number captured. An entire army completely wiped out, along with
Jesus.
their consul. During the battle, the Roman vanguard had managed to break through at the front and climbed the hill above the fog. When the mist cleared, what they saw was a blood-red lake and a sea of Roman bodies.
Yeah, it was a sea of Roman blood or something like that. Yeah. Crazy.
Worse yet, when the other consuls sent cavalry to try to aid Flaminius's doomed legions, they too were caught and defeated. A double disaster. Rome went into a frenzy. For the second time, Hannibal had completely decimated an entire Roman army. Romans were dying by the tens of thousands. Common citizens began flocking to the city for safety. Women waited by the city gates in tears, hoping to hear news of loved ones. This one man, having just led his battered army across the Alps the previous year, now stood less than 100 miles from Rome. To this point, he had been a problem. Now, Hannibal was a crisis. And in a crisis, Rome took desperate measures. They actually had a system in place when dealing with an emergency of this magnitude. They would forgo their two-consul power-sharing system and instead
A dictator?
temporarily give one man near total power and authority to be as decisive as he needed and hopefully salvage the situation. This all-powerful position in Rome's government had a name.
Dictator?
Dictator.
Yep.
It's actually where we get the word. But unlike modern dictators, Roman ones didn't score perfect rounds of golf or ride bears through the Siberian tundra. They held their power for just 6 months before they were required to give it up. And in Rome's hour of need, the man chosen to be dictator in 217 BC, one of the most highly esteemed members of the Roman Senate, Fabius Maximus.
Oh.
So how would Fabius, as dictator, confront Hannibal? Well, Fabius understood that marching all of Rome's young men straight into a one-man meat grinder was bleeding Rome dry. Hannibal was clearly too dangerous to face head-on in battle.
Fair.
However, he was also stuck in their territory with dwindling manpower and forced to live off the land. It wasn't a sustainable position to be in long-term, and he could only remain there for so long.
It's a beast burger.
If Rome avoided battle with Hannibal to prevent any more crippling losses, and instead simply maneuvered around him, blocking supplies and taking out smaller contingents where possible, Hannibal would gradually become weaker, while they would gradually become stronger. And so Fabius presented his new idea to the Roman Senate. Okay guys, I have an idea. See if you can follow me here, okay? Instead of fighting Hannibal,
We run
he approaches,
away.
We run away.
Sir, you're a genius.
Fabius's strategy couldn't have been any less Roman. Romans were meant to march headfirst into battle, not run away from it. It seemed cowardly, and Fabius was extremely unpopular. At this point, Hannibal was continuing south. He had to stay on the move to keep his army fed, and he was still aiming to undermine Rome's alliances in the south. As he went, in a calculated display of aggression, he devastated the Roman countryside and killed many Romans, all in plain sight of Fabius and his army. We're just gonna stand here? Yes. Are you a coward?
Yes.
No. But Fabius, that's my farm. Well, McDonald, thank you for your
McDonald.
sacrifice. You're a hero now. Think of the stories you'll tell. Old MacDonald had a farm.
Aw.
Shut up. But you know who else hated Fabius's strategy? Hannibal. He understood the danger he was in. Turning Rome's allies against her required Hannibal to keep smashing the Romans in battle. He couldn't do that if Fabius wouldn't fight him. Multiple times, Hannibal tried to goad Fabius into a fight, but Fabius wouldn't bite. Failing that, he tried to turn Rome against Fabius. According to the writer Livy, he burned down all the farms he could, but any farm he learned was owned by Fabius himself. He left well alone. Hey, Fabius, why isn't he burning down your farm? You got some sort of a secret deal with him? What? Of course not. Hey, Hannibal! What? Burn my farm too, please! What? Burn my farm too, please! No! Remember our secret deal!
Bro.
Well, you gotta admit, he's a genius. Hannibal's problem, however, was that he had to stay on the move to keep supplying his army from the local lands. At one point, he entered Campania, one of the richest regions of Italy. Great for resupplying, and great for showing up Fabius in front of Rome's South Italian allies. But he was caught in a valley, and Fabius quickly moved to block his escapes. Haha! We've got him! After he's used up all the valley's supplies, he'll starve. Sir? What are all those lights leaving the valley? Is he trying to escape?
Fire?
Lights in plain view. Well, that's a trap if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
And we're falling
Of course you are.
Suspecting a trap, Fabius refused to budge. But other Romans in the valley rushed to confront Hannibal, only to find the Carthaginian army
No,
was
wait.
actually just a herd of oxen
Oh.
with torches tied to their heads.
That is brilliant. That is so freaking smart. What kind of Looney Tune BS is this? Literally. That is some like Bugs Bunny level stuff right there. God, that's crazy. Man, Peter would have a field day with this one.
They then found themselves caught in an ambush. With the Romans distracted, Hannibal's army was able to slip away into the night, unopposed. Classic Hannibal. For all his inaction, the dissatisfied Romans mockingly dubbed him Fabius the Delayer. But the thing is, Fabius's strategy was probably the best thing he could have done. He was right that constant encounters with Hannibal were bleeding Rome dry, and the time he took allowed Rome some breathing room to recover their forces when they desperately needed to, while putting Hannibal into an increasingly more difficult position. Modern historians view Fabius's strategy as generally a good idea. To this day, the act of not engaging an enemy, but instead gradually wearing them down, is still referred to as the Fabian strategy. But when Fabius's term finally came to an end, the Senate couldn't have been happier. It was time to start fighting again. However, they probably had a little chat about how they were going to go about it. See, Hannibal's tactics up until now had been very sneaky. Or, if you're a Roman, you might say dishonorable. I'm sick of it. Every time we try to take this guy down, we march straight at him. But then, oh no, Hannibal's hiding in a bush. Hannibal's got 30,000 men up a tree. At this point, I'm not convinced my wife isn't just Hannibal wearing a disguise.
What? Hold on.
My wife isn't just Hannibal wearing a disguise.
You know? Wait. Huh. But this one has a beard, and your wife doesn't. And her eye patch is on the right, not on the left. Like Campbell. See, so it's totally not the same person. Not to mention, she has long hair and he has shorter hair. But she does have a nice 6-pack though. Damn.
Look, this time we obviously have to switch something up. Now granted, we're Roman, so we're gonna march straight at him without thinking.
As usual.
That can't be helped. It's in our blood. But I have a proposition.
Huh?
This time, when we march straight at him, we do it with a massive army. I'm talking like 80,000 men. It won't matter what kind of shenanigans
You can outnumber him.
He can hide in all the bushes he wants. There's no way he can possibly beat off
What?
80,000 men.
That sounds kind of oh.
Grow up. You know what I mean? And so it was. With 2 new consuls, Rome put together a massive army, the biggest Rome had ever fielded, to put Hannibal away once and for all. To gather the men required, 2/3 of them ended up being completely inexperienced.
That's not very
But how
good.
much experience does
That's not good at all, man. If you have inexperienced soldiers against a bunch of war veterans like the Carthaginians who've been spending the last couple of years, you know, harassing you guys and bullying you guys, like you can have all the men you want, but if they're inexperienced, they don't know what they're doing. They're just gonna come back and bite you in the ass.
it take to be expendable war fodder? As this massive army set out in the summer of 216 BC, the Romans knew they needed to win this battle. Just one victory over Hannibal would likely be enough to end his entire campaign. And this time, their overwhelming manpower gave them confidence they could do it. Hannibal had taken position at the town of Cannae, where he had captured an important Roman supply depot. With Fabius gone, Hannibal knew a battle was likely coming, and he was eager to fight it on his terms. But when his men looked out at the Roman camp, They couldn't believe what they were seeing. That army's huge! There's no way we can possibly beat off all these men.
Oh,
How
that's
are we
gay.
gonna beat off all of these men? You know what I mean. I think he's right, Hannibal. Hannibal is then said to have replied, Gisco, my friend, don't worry. There may be a lot of them, but amongst their ranks, there's not a single man named Gisco.
Aw.
This joke was apparently so funny that his officers began to laugh and laugh. And when his men in the camp heard the laughter, they were like, hey, they're laughing. I guess that means we're gonna win the battle. Yippee!
What?
As for the Romans, the consuls were another pairing between an inexperienced hothead and a wise scholar. Although,
Why though? What? Like, bro, this didn't work the last time. And you had Scipio and Longus, so why would it be good with these two? And what's up with the Romans bringing old ass men who are no longer, who are past their primes? They stay on the left, like, bro, this guy should just be in the Senate seat, just chilling. And why bring a hothead who you know from previous experience in the last couple of years just causes you problems? Like, I get it. I get why they do it. But at the same time, why? Like, this didn't work the last time.
the main historian from this era was good friends with Paulus's family, so take that with a grain of salt. On his day of command, the rash and hasty Varro, despite the apparent pleas from Paulus, sent the army out for battle. And when Hannibal saw this, he did the same. And here comes the single largest battle of the Second Punic War.
Oh, damn.
And one of the most renowned battles in history.
Oh, jeez.
The infamous Battle of Cannae.
Okay.
In all the pre-battle maneuvering, Hannibal was able to ensure his army was fighting from the south. This meant the seasonal dust-carrying winds were to his back and blowing directly into the faces of the Romans.
Oh, damn.
Like I said, control.
True.
After 2 years in Italy, Hannibal's infantry had dwindled to about 40,000. The Romans possibly outnumbered him 2 to 1. Their army was so big that their maniples stretched far deeper than they normally would. The Romans planned to charge Hannibal's thin, weak line like a battering ram and break it.
That's a bad
They
idea.
also chose a narrow battlefield in the hopes it would prevent Hannibal's far superior cavalry from being able to outmaneuver them. They wanted an honorable battle where pure strength rather than trickery would decide the outcome. If Hannibal had his say, however, trickery might end up having a lot to do with it. He ordered his line to position themselves as an outward bulge, with his weakest troops at the very center. Just behind them, out of sight from the Romans, stood the elite Libyan infantry, waiting for their moment to strike. The battle commenced as the massive Roman troops smashed into the Carthaginian center. The shape of Hannibal's line ensured the overwhelming weight of the Romans hit his weakest troops first, and
Okay.
they were pushed back. Hannibal's outward bulge reversed inward, with the Romans being funneled in towards the weak center. Hannibal
Are you gonna beat up all these
positioned
men?
himself at the center to encourage the troops to hold out as long as possible against the Roman onslaught, because while the Romans were unleashing carnage on the center, Hannibal's cavalry needed time to do their job. The heavy cavalry on the left, after a barbaric fight, sent the Roman horse packing, with the consul Paulus even sustaining a severe head injury.
Oh, damn.
He managed to move into the center to keep the battle going. Then, the heavy cavalry turned and approached Varro's cavalry from behind. At the first sight of the coming Carthaginian envelopment, Varro ordered his horsemen to flee the battlefield. The Carthaginians had won the cavalry battle. But back in the center, according to some accounts, Hannibal's line did eventually end up caving to the
That's not
massive
good.
weight of the Romans, and they began to flee. The Romans pushed deeper, and organization within the army likely broke down as they became a giant mass, trying to massacre the fleeing Carthaginians. They didn't realize that they were playing right into Hannibal's hands. At that
Oh,
moment,
no.
Hannibal's elite units, having done no fighting yet,
They're
and
not
therefore
exhausted.
fresh as a daisy, turned and smashed into the Roman sides. Many of these troops were wearing Roman helmets and armor they
Oh, that's
picked
smart.
up after previous battles, and the confused Romans may not have even realized they were the enemy. As Hannibal managed to regain the composure of his center and encourage them back into the fight, the Carthaginian cavalry swooped in from behind. And look
They're
at
trapped.
what lies before you. A military general's wet dream. The total encirclement of a much larger force by a much smaller force.
Damn.
The Romans were trapped. Hannibal had unbelievably managed to use their own superiority in numbers against them. Rather than simply encircling them, he had actually allowed them to use their own immense power and push themselves into an encircled position. This was the genius of Cannae. And with that, the annihilation began. For hours,
Holy
the Carthaginians
shit.
slaughtered the helpless Romans from all sides. The terrified Romans were so tightly packed that at times they couldn't
couldn't even
lift their
fight.
arms to
Yeah.
defend themselves. The kill
They're like sardines in a can. Like, yeah, they couldn't defend themselves or anything. It was just slaughtering.
killing went on so long that the Carthaginians became exhausted from the non-stop massacre.
And kept on
by
slaughtering
the time
them.
the butchery came to an end, the grim toll spoke for itself. To Hannibal's several thousand lost, the Romans
Jesus.
suffered 60 to 80,000.
Holy shit. Oh my god, that's just a blowout. It was like a blow. It was a blowout combined with the rout. It was a blowout. It was a full-on blowout out here. Jesus. Oh my god, dude. That's holy shit. That's mind-boggling. Crazy.
Dead or captured. Yet another entire army wiped out by Hannibal. Many
God
high-ranking
damn.
Romans met their end at Cannae. Polis, for one, but also 80 senators
Oh.
and more. It's been estimated that 20% of Rome's male population aged 18 to 50 died at Cannae.
What the fuck? Okay, hold on.
High-ranking Romans met their end at Cannae. Polis,
Okay, so the consul Polus died.
for one, but also 80
80 senators. 80 of their senators died also, which I'm not sure why these guys are even on the battlefield. Like, this is literally your government right here. I'm not sure why you have your senators out on the fucking battlefield.
senators and more. It's been estimated
And then they lost 20% of men aged 18 to 50. Jesus Christ, that's crazy.
that 20% of Rome's male population aged 18 to 50 died at Cannae. This
That
was
was
it. Hannibal's vengeance. The stunned Carthaginians, as they searched for their own survivors among the dead, couldn't believe the sight of it. An estimated 30,000 gallons of blood now lay
God
spilled
damn.
on the battlefield. Rome's defeat at Cannae sent shockwaves throughout Italy. Just as Hannibal had hoped, most of southern Italy now defected to his side, including the second largest city on the peninsula. Wow, Hannibal, this is incredible. What could possibly come next? Next? Jim Bob. I've killed 150,000 Romans. I've turned her allies against her. That's it. That's vengeance. So let me tell you what comes next. Rome surrenders. Their territories are reduced. We recover our lost islands. And Carthage dominates the Mediterranean once again. But sir,
Dang.
what if they don't surrender? Jim Bob, did you miss what just happened? Of course they're gonna surrender. Throughout his campaign, Hannibal had shown himself to be very adept at reading the Roman mind. But if he now thought that Rome might surrender, it was the first time he severely underestimated them. And he was about to discover an extremely inconvenient fact about Rome.
They don't give up.
Rome never surrenders. At a Roman survivors' camp near Cannae, one young officer overheard some troops discussing how they would flee Rome. Drawing his sword, he threatened to cut down any man that would abandon Rome in its hour of need.
It's Scipio's son.
That officer was Scipio the Younger. But soon enough, the Romans would come to call him Scipio Africanus, the hero of Rome.
Oh. Part 3. This is a long. 49 minutes. What time is it? 4:03. Okay, I got time.
This video was
We got time. Jesus Christ, man. This video is an hour and 26 minutes currently recording. Jesus. All right. The final Punic Wars video, for now, by OverSimplified. Jesus.
How do you solve a problem like Hannibal?
You don't.
In a crisis such as this, the Romans often turn to religion. What's going on? Are the gods mad at us? The gods must be mad at us! But why? Why? No, why? Two of the Vestal virgins broke their sacred oath and lost their virginity.
Oh,
That's
no.
why Hannibal's kicking our ass. What should we do with them? Appease the gods! Bury them alive!
True story?
Who did they even boink? It was those guys! Huh? What should we do with them? Beat them to death!
Damn.
Needless to say, the Romans were freaking out. Okay, now that that's out of our system, let's go find a real solution. The real solution, first of all, involved raising a new army. Remember, at Cannae, Hannibal had wiped out the biggest army Rome had ever fielded. Possibly 20% of Rome's military-aged men.
God
Rome
damn.
needed to replace those losses, and fast, before Hannibal arrived at their gates. But where would those replacements come from? Rome had a few ideas. Quick! Lower the age of conscription! You! Put down those Digimons! You're a soldier now! Enlist all these slaves with the promise of freedom! And equip them with all these religious weapons and armor!
Oh.
Anything we've got! All right, men! You are Rome's last line of defense! Man the walls!
They're literally children. They are literally children and slaves. This can't possibly go wrong.
After the earth-shattering defeat at Cannae, the Romans expected Hannibal to arrive at their gates any day now. In Hannibal's camp, the mood was triumphant. We did it! We won! So when do we march on Rome? Today? I'm free in 10 minutes. Whoa, slow down. We're not going to Rome. We're staying right here. Are you an idiot, Hannibal? No, I'm smart. We don't need to march on Rome, because after what we did, the Romans are definitely going to surrender. Watch. Hey, Jimbo.
No.
Yes, sir? Go to Rome and discuss peace terms. Yeah.
They're literally doing the exact same thing in the first, where they get overconfident, and then they're gonna start doing dumb things like how in the first Punic War, where they literally turned 2/3 of their navy back into merchant ships. This is that moment again. Except no ships, but like you have the opportunity, Hannibal. Go to Rome and crush them. Get your full on vengeance. Rebuild your empire's strength. But no, you're staying here. You're doing the exact same thing that the senators in your country did in the first Punic War.
Yes, sir. Hey, I'm here to discuss peace terms. Piss off! They told me to piss off! What? They didn't surrender? No! And they were mean!
Oh.
Hannibal was learning that Rome had an unprecedented attitude towards surrender. Even when Hannibal offered to ransom thousands of prisoners back to Rome, a pretty common practice in ancient warfare, the Romans refused, opting to let their own men be sold into slavery rather than paying a penny to the enemy.
Damn.
It was clear that in order to defeat Rome, you had to annihilate them. If any Roman man was still standing, you hadn't yet won. But
I ain't hear no bell.
Hannibal decided not to march on Rome.
Hannibal, homie. Third elephant petting zoo for cash. Wine and cheese night. Sacrifice a child. March on Rome. Hannibal, homie, you've been dominating the Romans the entire fucking time. You have the perfect opportunity to finally put your rival to rest. And you're not taking it. This is literally you're turning your 2/3 of your navy back into merchant ships. This is literally that's literally your first Punic War mistake in the second Punic War, my guy. Like, you need to stop. You need to bro. This is dumb. You guys should go and just march on Rome and finally claim the victory you rightfully deserve.
And it was a controversial decision. Even one of his own commanders famously told him, Hannibal, you know how to win a battle, but you do not know how to win a war. From Hannibal's perspective, perhaps he knew his army was designed to survive behind enemy lines and sow chaos. It may not have been well equipped to undertake a risky siege of one of the most fortified cities on Earth. Plus, with many of the southern cities defecting to his side after Cannae, Hannibal likely thought things were going pretty well, as is. We'll stay the course. Okay, so the Romans didn't surrender after 3 major defeats. But surely they'll surrender after 4. Unfortunately for Hannibal, however, after Cannae, the Romans well and truly learnt their lesson. Well, would you look at that? Remind me, who was it that said Hannibal was too dangerous to fight? You.
It was you.
And who said we shouldn't fight him directly?
It was you.
You. And who tried to fight him directly?
Us.
And what happened? We lost
Got clapped.
20% of our military-aged men. That's right. So tell me, when Hannibal approaches, what do?
Run away.
We run away. I'm a genius.
You are.
Clap for me.
You're smart. You're right.
Cannae, Fabius Maximus kind of became the unofficial leader of Rome. Even if others were elected consul, his influence was unparalleled, and Rome quickly reverted to the Fabian strategy of avoiding Hannibal. They knew they couldn't defeat him, so instead, they hoped they could at least contain him. They raised an impressively large number of men, partly by enlisting teenagers, slaves, and criminals.
Jesus.
And rather than trying to fight Hannibal, they instead turned their attention towards those treacherous southern cities that had switched sides. Thanks for joining the winning team, guys. Here's the deal. All you have to do is provide me some troops and defend your own city, since I'll be too busy to defend it for you. Now, I'm going to briefly turn around, look this way, and
Aye.
when I look back, you better not be being massacred by the Romans. Oh, for goodness sake! The Romans spread out their newly
God
formed
damn.
legions and began attacking the southern cities here, there, everywhere. The southern cities expected to have Hannibal's protection, and Hannibal was inundated with requests for help. He was forced to run around southern Italy, trying to encourage defection while rescuing his own allies. But when he showed up, the Romans would often leave, only to come back the second he went away again. And as these southern cities found themselves being punished severely by the Romans, they began to realize that joining Hannibal may not have been such a good idea. Hey! You think you're so big? Attacking my allies? Why don't you come out and face me? Because you're scary!
True.
The thick local southern cities frequently switched sides depending on who appeared to be winning, and the whole situation became a nightmare for Hannibal
He
to
is
control,
scary.
playing a constant game of Roman whack-a-mole to fend off the enemy armies. Having not long ago seemed near extinction, the Romans had managed to turn the situation around by placing Hannibal in a clever predicament. If he left southern Italy, the southern cities would likely capitulate to Rome, meaning he couldn't leave. And since the Romans wouldn't fight him, he couldn't inflict any more dangerous defeats. For now, Hannibal had been muzzled. Southern Italy had been his prize for his impressive Italian campaign. But those clever Romans found a way to take his prize and turn it into his prison. With the Fabian strategy neutralizing Hannibal for now, the Romans were freed up to refocus their attention to other fronts.
Oh?
This whole time, while we've been discussing Hannibal and the Italian campaign of the Second Punic War, fighting had actually been occurring elsewhere.
Oh, that
For
makes sense.
example, in 216 BC, the Romans had sent an army north to punish the Celtic tribes that had joined Hannibal. However, as the Romans entered the Latana forest, little did they know those clever Celts had set up a trap. The Celts dropped trees on them, decimating the Romans. And they even took the commander's head to use as a religious sippy cup.
That's kind of cool,
So
actually.
that went pretty bad. Whoa, very bad. But thankfully, in other theaters, things were going a bit better. For example, let's look at Sicily. After Cannae, internal chaos in Syracuse caused this longtime Roman ally to switch sides, because being a winner is more fun. The Carthaginians also landed troops, hoping to retake their lost island, while Roman proconsul Claudius Marcellus moved in to besiege Syracuse. The siege was a brutal slug for the Romans, largely due to the presence of one famous scientist and mathematician, Archimedes. He lived in Syracuse at the time,
Archimedes, the legend.
and he invented a variety of clever
That's
contraptions
cool.
to defend the city. There was a giant claw that could grab and destroy
Oh.
Roman ships, and purportedly even a big mirror that could magically ignite them.
That's
The
cool.
Carthaginian forces on the island attempted to come to Syracuse's rescue, but luckily for the Romans, they all got diarrhea
Oh.
and then died.
Oh.
Finally, in the city itself, the day of a big annual religious festival came, and the Syracusans said, "Well, fellas, we've been holding off the Romans for over a year now. I think we've earned ourselves a little party." Sir, we're still under a massive siege. Are you sure? They'll probably take advantage of it. Well, Carl, I'm taking advantage of the open bar. Sir, they've got battering rams. Well, Carl, I'm ramming these hors d'oeuvres
God.
into my mouth. Sir, they'll tear down our walls. Well, Carl, I'm tearing it up on the dance floor.
Jesus.
Sir, they're literally at the gates. Well, Carl, I'm literally at the cheese platter.
What did you expect was gonna happen?
Marcellus took advantage of the drunken festivities, stormed the city, and plundering ensued. In the chaos, Marcellus ordered Archimedes be captured alive. Some sources say Roman troops entered Archimedes' home, and they were like, "Hey man, are you the math guy? Go away, I'm drawing circles. Look, I just need to know if you're the nerd. Come on bro, get out of here, you're messing up my circles." Now is not a good time to draw circles. It's always a good time for circles. I love circles. Either stop drawing the circles or I kill you. I choose the circles. This
Bruh. Bruh. Bro, are you serious? They really killed Archimedes just like that?
the circles or I kill you. I choose the circles.
Damn. The fact they killed fucking Dude, he would have been like an invaluable. Prize to bring back to Rome with you. But no, you murdered him. Alright. Good job, Rome.
Despite not securing Archimedes, by 210 BC, the Romans did secure Sicily and also put down a Carthage-supported rebellion on nearby Sardinia. 2 Roman successes, and there were more to come. After Cannae, King Philip V of Macedon saw an opportunity. He was concerned with recent Roman expansion into Illyria, and so, when he saw Hannibal annihilating the Romans in Italy, he said, "Oh my gosh, hey! Hey, Hannibal! Oh my gosh, you're so cool! Let's form an alliance and annihilate the Romans together!" Sure. Yes!
God.
Hannibal hoped to secure Philip's help in fighting Rome, but a Roman army was sent to the region, stirred up Philip.
Isn't Philip? No, he's not. I'm getting, because I'm gonna say, isn't Philip the fifth? I can. Philip the fifth in Macedon. Yeah, because this is after Alexander the Great. All right.
Philip's other Greek opponents, and essentially
So yeah, this was after like the Great Alexandrian Empire.
kept Philip bogged down in Greece for the entire duration of the war. Another kind of Roman success.
Kind of.
But the main front Rome was hoping to push Carthage back in was Spain. The riches of Spain made it one of Carthage's most valuable possessions, and the Romans were eager to weaken it. Remember way back at the start of the war,
Yeah.
the consul Scipio was supposed to go to Spain, but ended up rushing back to Italy when he realized Hannibal was crossing the Alps. He then faced Hannibal at Ticinus and had to be rescued by his son. Well, after he recovered from his wounds, he proceeded with the original plan and joined his brother in Spain. Then,
Scipio's
the
still
two
alive?
Scipio brothers fought a successful campaign against
Scipio
Hannibal's
bros.
brother, Hasdrubal. Over the next few years, they won a number of key victories, even taking Saguntum, the city that had kick-started this entire war. Yet more Roman success. A trend appeared to be emerging. Whenever the Romans fought anyone other than Hannibal, they usually came out on top. Perhaps these other fronts would be the key to Rome taking back control of this war. Perhaps it was time for Rome to return to their old ways of being the aggressive go-getters. And perhaps it would help if Rome had a Hannibal of their own.
Scipio, son.
Scipio, the younger, was the son of Publius Scipio, currently fighting in Spain. This made him a member of one of Rome's most prestigious families. Not much is known of his childhood, although there is one story of how he was getting hot and heavy with a young lady, only to have his dad barge in and drag him out wearing nothing but a cloak. This story was written by a Roman poet to make Scipio look bad, but by modern standards has ended up making him look pretty rad. My guess is if Rome had a high school football team, Scipio would be the quarterback. Scipio was only 18 when the Second Punic War broke out. He was at the Battle of Ticinus, where he famously rescued his father, and he was one of the survivors of the Battle of Cannae, after which he threatened to cut down any man who dared abandon Rome. He was a natural leader, and up to his ears in spunk, and therefore he rose through the Roman ranks shockingly fast. We need a new military tribune, but Hannibal has killed so many men, we're running out of options. Put me in, coach! Scipio, you're only 20. You can't be a tribune. Come on, coach. Put me in. Well, you do have a lot of spunk. All right, you're hired. We
Yay.
need to elect a new Edile. Who do we have left? Put me in, Coach. Scipio, you don't meet the minimum age requirement. I got this, Coach. I got this. Well, okay then. You're in. Ugh, my room's a mess.
It's getting
I
all the
gotta cook
ranks.
Dinner. Oh, and would you look at that? My fly's down. Life sucks. Put me in, Coach.
Oh.
Wow, you're so spunky. When Scipio was 25, however, he received some bad news. His father and uncle in Spain
Passed away?
had both been defeated in battle, and shockingly, both of them were killed.
Oh.
The news must have been devastating for the young Scipio, but it was also devastating for Rome, as almost all of their Spanish gains were wiped away. Okay, listen up! We need someone to go and replace the Scipios in Spain. So, who's up for it? Come on, who's gonna go? Fabius, Spain seems unwinnable. There's no glory to be had there. Yeah, the glory is here, defending the homeland from Hannibal. Well, somebody has to go. I said, well, somebody has to go. Put me
Scipio. The younger.
Scipio was eager to be the one to go and replace his father and uncle in Spain. However, there was concern amongst the older senators. You're only 26. You can't lead a military campaign. He's right. That's a good point. And you're 71. You can't stand up without a little urine dribbling down your leg. That's a good
Damn.
point. He's absolutely right. Scipio didn't meet the typical requirements for the position, but as the only person willing to go, this young piece of hot Roman meat was unanimously elected proconsul and sent to lead the Roman armies in Spain. He hoped to carry out a campaign as impressive as Hannibal's had been in Italy. In fact, Scipio rather admired the one-eyed general. Scipio,
I mean, it makes sense. He'd probably like respect for Hannibal. Especially with how dominant he's been over the last couple of years. Hmm. All right. The Third Macedonian War.
you've got a Hannibal poster in your room. Yes, but he's the enemy. I'll let you in on a secret, Billy. You know how we're gonna win this war? By marching straight at the enemy? No, that's the old way. We've gotta be less Roman and a little more Hannibal. Hey, by the way, don't just barge into my room. That's an infringement of my privacy. Privacy? Piece of hot Roman meat sent to lead the Roman armies in Spain. Scipio was charismatic, extremely confident, bold, and probably most importantly of all, he thought differently from other Roman generals. So, Skippy, what's the plan? Don't call me that. We're Roman, so same thing as usual, right? We march straight at the enemy, right? Get this, Billy. No, we don't. Scipio was a real outside-the-box thinker. There were 3 main Carthaginian armies in Spain, 2 led by Hannibal's brothers, Hasdrubal and Mago, and another led by Hasdrubal Gisco. Most Roman generals might have looked at these armies and said, I just gotta, march straight at these guys and kick their ass and stuff. But not Scipio. At a time when many believed winning battles won wars, one of Scipio's greatest strengths was an ability to see the overall strategy behind his actions. He knew that Spain was the closest thing Hannibal had to a base of support. With its mass resources and manpower, it's where Hannibal likely hoped to get supplies and reinforcements from. Spain's base of support was the city of New Carthage, the most fortified city on the peninsula, perfectly positioned to communicate with and receive supplies from Africa. And so, if Scipio managed to take New Carthage, he could take Spain. And if he took Spain, then maybe Hannibal would fall. To Scipio, Spain wasn't just some sideshow. It was the main show, and it all rested on New Carthage. But a surprise attack on Carthage's capital city in Spain? It was a ridiculous idea. Even if you pull off the 7-day forced march past the Carthaginian armies to New Carthage. Once you get there, you'd only have a couple weeks to take the city before the Carthaginians arrived to kick your ass.
True.
Sieges of cities that fortified usually took months, if not years.
Yeah.
So, Scipio, how are you going to pull this off? Well, first of all, to make sure the surprise plan stayed hidden, Scipio kept it a total secret, even from his own men. Where
Makes
we going,
sense.
Skippy? I'm not telling you. Is it Disneyland? I'm not telling you. I think that means we're going to Disneyland.
Oh my god, we're gonna go to Disneyland?
This secrecy
God.
kept the Carthaginians from preemptively reinforcing the city. As a result,
Skippy.
New Carthage was left under garrisoned because the Carthaginians believed it to be kind of naturally impenetrable.
Makes sense.
It was surrounded on 3 sides by a lagoon and only accessible via a narrow isthmus. What's an isthmus, you ask? Maybe read a book.
Okay, I will.
All right, Scipio, you made it to New Carthage. Now the other Carthaginian armies are only a 10 days march from coming and kicking your ass. Just what were you thinking? Well, Scipio had learned something crucial. Every afternoon, the tides made the lagoon around New Carthage briefly shallow enough to cross.
Huh.
So, he ordered a large diversionary attack on the main city gates, distracting the city's defenders. Then, a small infiltration force traversed the lagoon, climbed the unguarded northern walls, and entered the city. They ambushed the guards and opened the city gates to the rest of Scipio's army.
Bruh. That is genius. That is how you do a siege.
And just like that, New Carthage had fallen. In a single day, Scipio had taken Carthage's capital city in Spain, and he made it look easy. With it, he seized much of Carthage's war supplies, several silver mines near the city, and various powerful Iberian tribes even joined his side. And now he was in a great position to take on the other Carthaginian armies in Spain. Wow, Skippy, you're amazing. Don't call me that. How'd you know the lagoon would get shallow? It's almost like you speak to the gods. No. I told him. All the local farmers know about the yes, that's it. I speak to the gods.
Wow, Skippy's
Scipio
awesome.
had no problem allowing his men to think he was divinely inspired. Roman writers also tell us another of Scipio's traits. He was apparently quite merciful in victory and often protected the inhabitants of captured cities. Spencer! What are you doing? Well, I was just about to murder this family. Hey, bad Spencer! No! Can I at least kill the dad? No! What about the... No! Oh, you're mean! The Carthaginian generals
No,
in the
you
region
cannot
must
murder
have
them.
been shocked at the loss of their capital city. There was now a Terminator in Spain, and he was coming. In 208 BC, he made a move on Hasdrubal, hoping to defeat him before the other Carthaginian armies could come and link up. When Hasdrubal heard Scipio was coming, he said, Hasdrubal did the sensible thing and climbed a big hill for safety. Hey, get down here. I want to kill you. Fat chance, Vin Diesel.
Oh.
He doesn't have to be rude. So what's the plan then, Scipio? This time, we march straight up and at him. Right?
I do know what Vin Diesel
Right,
is.
Scipio? Billy?
You hear, buddy.
No.
What?
Scipio once again displayed a distinctly not Roman approach to fighting, when instead of marching straight up and at him, Scipio feigned a frontal skirmish, only to pull off a surprise uphill envelopment. Not an easy thing to do, but Scipio had trained his army to pull off maneuvers that typical Roman armies couldn't. After the battle, the defeated Hasdrubal fled Spain, hoping to link up with his brother Hannibal in Italy. And Hannibal desperately needed the help. As Scipio was dominating in Spain, Hannibal's struggles in southern Italy continued. He was convinced that if he just received ample supplies and reinforcements, he could reverse his fortunes and get back to kicking Rome's ass.
You lost your opportunity, Hannibal. When you didn't siege on Rome when they were at their weakest point, you lost your opportunity.
But for the remainder of the war, he would suffer a frustrating lack of support from the Carthaginian Senate. After Cannae, Hannibal had sent his brother Mago to Carthage, where he famously poured out golden rings taken from fallen Roman knights. He told the Senate that with reinforcements, Hannibal could finish the job. But a growing faction in the Senate, possibly jealous of Hannibal's rising influence, opposed sending any help. In the end, a large number of the reinforcements gathered for Hannibal now ended up being diverted to stop Scipio in Spain. Just as he had hoped, Scipio's campaign in Spain was actively harming Hannibal in Italy. However, those reinforcements meant that when Scipio made a move on the remaining Carthaginian armies in Spain, they now likely outnumbered him. With the odds heavily stacked against him, it would take some serious skill to win this battle.
This looks familiar.
This time we're gonna march straight at them, right? No, Billy! Ooh. The
God,
preceding
Billy.
Battle of Alipa is often considered Scipio's masterpiece because it was positively oozing with deception and trickery.
Oh.
First, both sides spent several days forming up and facing off without actually fighting. On each day, Scipio placed his strongest Roman legions in the center with his weaker Iberian allies on the sides. Seeing this, the Carthaginians were like, "This guy's an idiot. We've seen his plan. His strong..."
Why are you doing it? God, you guys are underestimating you never underestimate your opponents, ever. What are you doing, my guy? God.
Strongest troops are going to be in the center, so let's form all of our battle plans based on this information. I'm sure he won't change anything at the last minute.
That's not very
Then,
smart.
when the day of battle came, Scipio woke up the Carthaginians with an early morning attack, causing them to rush out of camp without breakfast.
Oh
When
no.
the Carthaginians lined up with their strongest troops in the center to meet Scipio's, they were stunned to find
It's like deja vu.
Scipio had completely reversed his order. The weaker Carthaginian sides now found Scipio's strongest bearing down on them. Then, in an extremely impressive maneuver, the well-trained Roman wings even stretched out during their approach, hitting the Carthaginians from the sides. The Carthaginian center could have turned to help, but Scipio had ordered his center to approach so slowly that Carthage's center could do nothing but just stand and wait. In this way, the outnumbered Scipio had cleverly controlled events so that the bulk of the strongest Carthaginian troops couldn't even fight during the battle. He had completely removed them from the equation.
That's smart.
The incredible Scipio had inflicted a monumental defeat on a much larger enemy force.
God.
The Battle of Alipa was the final nail in the coffin for Carthaginian Spain. Yet more tribespeople continued to side with the Romans, and the remaining Carthaginians retreated to the coast and eventually fled the peninsula. And would you look at that? In just a few years, the incredible young Scipio had turned Spain completely red. The Carthaginians must have been stunned. His Spanish campaign had almost been as impressive as Hannibal's campaign in Italy. In fact, see if any of this sounds familiar. In Spain, Scipio had used the environment of the battlefield to his advantage. He staged ambushes by concealed troops. He treated local tribespeople well, earning their friendship. He even once forced his enemy to come out and fight him without breakfast.
He's using Hannibal's strategies against them.
Each and every one of these tactics were possibly borrowed from a certain one-eyed general. In all the battles Scipio had fought against Hannibal, it seemed he may have been taking notes.
Yeah?
Hey! Scipio! What? Stop stealing my tactics! I'm 700 miles away! I can't hear you! What did you say? What? What? Better yet, Scipio's achievement in taking a well-fortified city, plus his understanding of the overall strategy, has led some historians to argue he wasn't just as good as Hannibal. Scipio may actually have been better. This young man, who many in Rome had doubted, had just shut those silly billies, right, the flip up. Mere years ago, it looked like Rome had no chance of even surviving this war. But now, the momentum of war was shifting astonishingly fast. And for Hannibal in Italy, things continued to head south. Before Scipio had even gone to Spain, the Romans had placed Capua, Hannibal's largest city in Italy, under a dangerous siege. And in order to rescue it, Hannibal needed to take drastic action. Fast. Man, everything's falling apart. Fine, I'll do it. Do what? Yeah, you've convinced me. I'll march on Rome.
You're a little late now.
Hannibal, that conversation was 5 years ago. It's too late. No one's trying to convince you to march on Rome. I said I'll do it! Quit nagging me! Ugh. Hannibal finally marched on Rome, hoping it might draw the Romans away from Capua.
You literally lost your opportunity, Hannibal. Like, bro, you should have done this 5 years prior, not now that everything's collapsing around you. Not now that you lost your empire in Spain. Not now when you've lost the when the Romans aren't panicking anymore. The Romans have momentum. You lost your shot, Hannibal.
The Romans saw Hannibal approaching their city, and they freaked the hell out. Hannibal is said to have closely approached the city walls, inspecting the defenses, as the Romans inside quivered in their togas. However, Hannibal probably knew he had no chance of taking the city. The whole thing was a feint, and Hannibal soon left. The Romans famously coined the phrase, Hannibal is at the gates, to describe a moment of crisis or severe desperation. But for accuracy's sake, the phrase should probably be, Hannibal is at the gates. But don't worry, it's just a feint to draw the Romans away from Capua. And it didn't even work, because the Romans stayed at Capua, and the Capuans misunderstood and thought Hannibal had abandoned them. And so, they surrendered the city. But apparently that's not as catchy. Despite a few successes, including an ambush in 208 BC, where Hannibal managed to kill both consuls in one go, Hannibal was slowly but steadily losing his grip on southern Italy. Even Hasdrubal, who had fled Spain to join Hannibal, never reached his brother. He made his own dramatic crossing of the Alps, just as Hannibal had done. But unlike Hannibal, the second Hasdrubal arrived in Italy, he was immediately pulverized.
Oof.
The Romans then took his head and threw it over the walls into his brother's camp. Hannibal was becoming extremely isolated. After his impressive conquest of Spain, Scipio returned to Rome a hero. And when the election came for next year's consuls, despite not meeting the typical requirements,
Scipio won
in a landslide. But the question now was, what would he do next? All right, what's your plan then, Scipio? You're gonna go fight Hannibal now, right? Get this, Fabius. No.
What?
Scipio's plan remained the same as before. Don't attack the monster directly. Attack his base of support, which now happened to be Carthage itself.
Oh.
That's right. Scipio would invade Africa. However, Scipio understood that any invasion of Africa would stand a much better chance if he could secure an alliance with one of the African tribes. Throughout the war, Carthage's far superior Numidian cavalry, which came from this part of Africa, had played a critical role in winning battles. Numidia was divided between two rival kings. In the east, the king Syphax had sympathized with Rome for much of the war, and so at some point, Scipio visited Syphax to ratify a treaty. It just so happened, however, that the Carthaginian general Hasdrubal Gisco, whom Scipio had fought in Spain, also arrived at the exact same time. And so Syphax invited both Scipio and Gisco for a meal. The two men fought for Syphax's alliance, and by Roman accounts, Scipio was positively charming. Come on, Syphax, stick with us Romans. We'll build a naked statue of you.
Oh.
Very enticing. If you join our side, Syphax, we'll give you a 2% discount on figs. You like figs, don't you? Not really. Hey, Syphax, check this out.
Damn.
Wow! Hey, Syphax, check this out. Did he just defecate? I believe he did. Well, Scipio, you clearly are the most charming man in the Mediterranean. My alliance is... Syphax, I'll let you marry my extremely hot daughter. Yours! Hummin' Phenomena! Unable
God.
to compete with Syphax's libido, Scipio instead made contact with Syphax's rival, the other Numidian king, Massinissa, who was a longtime ally of Carthage. Scipio told Massinissa, if you join the Romans, I'll help you defeat Syphax and become the ultimate Numidian king. And so
God.
Massinissa was now on Team Rome. Good job, Skippy. With a Numidian alliance solidified, Scipio prepared for his invasion of Africa. He raised a volunteer force that included many of the disgraced survivors from Cannae, and he set sail. Well, Terry, any news from Italy? Has Hannibal won the war yet?
Oh. Uh-oh.
Here's Skippy!
Uh-oh, shit.
The Roman landing sent a clear message to the Carthaginians.
Here's
Don't invade
Skippy.
us. No, we invade you. For the first time in the war, the Carthaginian homeland was under threat, and the Carthaginians needed to defeat Scipio at all costs. They gathered a huge army led by Hasdrubal Gisco, with allied Numidians led by Syphax, and they ordered them to get Scipio the hell off their continent. Sources say at this point, Scipio was severely outnumbered. Scipio? That army's huge. There's no way we can
We've
beat
already
off
been
all
here
these
before.
men. How are we gonna beat off all these men? Vigorously.
Oh.
And while maintaining eye contact.
Oh.
As always, Scipio had a plan to deal with the
Scipio likes it that way, huh? He likes to look him in the eyes when he beats him off. Got it.
larger enemy force. It just so happened that Syphax was offering to try and broker peace between the Romans and the Carthaginians. And Scipio smelled an opportunity. He sent a Roman envoy to Syphax's camp. And when they got there, Syphax was like, hey guys, welcome to the enemy camp. Just before we begin negotiations, a small safety demonstration. As you can see, our huts are made of grass and reeds. Very flammable. If there was even a single spark, this whole place would become a raging inferno. And all my men would burn alive.
Nice.
Very interesting. The Roman troops then reported back to Scipio about the Numidian camp, its construction, and most importantly, its flammability. Then, the following night, as the sun was setting over the beautiful African plains, and the Carthaginians got all comfy in their beds, they began to gently dream of Carthaginian figs and child sacrifice.
Oh.
Good night, Carthaginians. Good night, Syphax and Gisco. Good evening, Scipio.
This looks familiar.
In the night, shadowy Roman figures approached the Numidian camp. As the Numidians lay in their beds, Scipio executed his plan.
By executing all of them.
The camp erupted into flames.
Jesus.
With the flammable wooden huts, the fires spread terrifyingly fast. Men were burned in their beds. Those who awoke in a panic, believing the fire to have been some kind of terrible accident, rushed to the exits.
And they got
with
slaughtered.
Their weapons and armor. Those who saw the fire from the Carthaginian camp also rushed out unarmed.
Oh,
And
no.
when they got there,
They were slaughtered.
there he was. Scipio, the Romans, and their steel.
Fuck.
The terrified Carthaginians were massacred, and with heavy casualties, Hasdrubal and Syphax fled the scene of the disaster. Scipio followed this incredible success with another victory against the pair at the Battle of the Great Plains. After that, Massinissa chased his rival Syphax into his kingdom, where Syphax was captured. Massinissa was now the ultimate Numidian king. He entered Syphax's capital city. He seized Syphax's palace. He even married Syphax's wife. And when Scipio got mad at him for marrying a Carthaginian girl, he then poisoned his wife.
What the
Boys
fuck?
will be boys. Having defeated the Carthaginian armies in
You
Africa,
poisoned her? That's
almost
fucked up,
nothing
man.
now stood between Scipio and Carthage. And the Carthaginians were freaking out. What do we do? What do we do? There's only one thing left to do. Recall him. Well, Hannibal, you've been here in Italy for 16 years.
Damn.
This is practically your home. You're basically Italian. Yes, Gerald. And I've had such a lovely time. I ate spaghetti, did this with my hands. I've committed my whole life to this campaign, and once Rome has fallen, it'll all have been worth it. Hannibal, you have to return to Carthage! Your Italian campaign has been for nothing! Your whole life has been a waste! No!
God damn.
Imagine being Hannibal in this moment. You left Carthage when you were 9. You probably barely even recognize your own homeland. The kingdom he had built in Spain with his father?
Gone.
Gone. And now his Italian campaign, his vengeance. Was it really all for nothing?
Yep.
But that was that. Carthage was under threat, and Hannibal had to protect his home city. As he left Italy, in Rome, there was celebration, but also some trepidation. Now, Scipio would have to face Hannibal in Africa, where Hannibal would have home advantage. While Hannibal was on his way, the Carthaginians...
Would he have home advantage though? Like, yeah, he was born there, but he left when he was 9. He hasn't been back to Carthage in almost 2 decades.
stalled for time and approached Scipio for peace talks. Hey, look, we never meant to start an all-out 2-decade-long war, but you did. No, that was Hannibal. He's to blame for all of this. Well, all right then. Sign this peace treaty. Okay, let me just get my signature right on there. He's here. Yes! Oh, look who's here, you bald prick! You're so dead now, Skippy. Don't call me that! After Carthage proposed peace, only to then go back on it, the normally merciful Scipio was enraged. He began refusing to accept town surrender, and instead began burning everything to the ground, selling everyone into slavery. Hannibal, he's burning our towns. Go stop him. Guys, he's obviously trying to lure me out there to fight on those flat plains, where his Numidian cavalry will give him the advantage. It's a trick. Well, it's working. Go and fight him. It's obviously a trap, and we're falling for it. Go and fight him. Hannibal set out to meet Scipio in the western plains. And here came Scipio's final test. Finally, the teacher would face the student. The 2 greatest generals of all time in one last, decisive battle. Would Hannibal's genius still shine through? Or would Scipio prove that he had surpassed the master? Before battle, the 2 great generals rode out from their camps and met in person for the first time. Hannibal, I'm a huge fan. I thought you'd have more hair, and I thought you'd have more eyes. Touché. They then had a conversation, which I'll paraphrase. Hannibal said, "At the start of this war, I had great fortune in Italy. But look at me now, a sad old man who, like other sad old men, failed to conquer Rome. Your fortune can change rapidly, Scipio. You should consider negotiating a peace rather than risking it all in one last fight against me." Very eloquently put. Scipio then replied, "Q! Negotiate? Negotiate what? I took Spain. I'm about to burn your pathetic city to the ground. What could you offer me in negotiations? I already have it all! Ah! Seriously though, Hannibal, I am such a big fan. And so, it was settled. The 2 great generals would face off one last time in the epic Battle of Zama. Scipio gave his men, consisting of many survivors from Cannae, a pre-battle speech, telling them not only would they gain redemption...
Dude, what if they suffer like PTSD? Like they're having flashbacks to Canine. Like, bro, they're probably like traumatized after seeing their friends and brothers in arms being slaughtered by the tens of thousands.
But they could become masters of the world. Hannibal told his men probably nothing, because most of them didn't even speak the same language.
Fair.
As the 2 armies lined up for battle, something interesting became clear. Hannibal had more infantry and hoped to use them to brute strength the Romans. But Scipio had the nimble Numidian cavalry and hoped to pull off an envelopment. It was a complete role reversal of Cannae. As the battle began, Hannibal made his first move. He sent his 80 war elephants to smash through and weaken the Roman infantry. Scipio had the perfect response. He had altered his formation to create passages between the Roman maniples. His light troops stepped aside at the right moment, revealing the gaps ahead of the charging elephants.
Oh, smart.
Elephants, if given the choice between a suicide charge into spears or a nice clean escape, will probably choose the escape.
Fair.
And that's what happened. Some elephants were so frightened from the noise that they even turned and smashed back into the Carthaginian cavalry, which
Oh,
the
no.
Roman cavalry then engaged. Your move, Hannibal. Hannibal wasn't an idiot. He knew that he was fighting superior Numidian cavalry on open plains. So when his weaker cavalry ended up being routed from the battlefield, he probably wasn't surprised and hoped the Roman cavalry would be lured as far from the battlefield as possible, because his infantry needed time to do a clever little job. Hannibal had the numerical advantage, and he had positioned his army in 3 lines. The weaker troops were at the front, while his best men, the army that had been with him in Italy, were in the rear. As the Romans smashed into the weaker front lines, they managed to cut through them, but suffered losses and exhaustion in doing so. The same with Hannibal's second line, so that by the time the Romans reached Hannibal's superior third line, the two sides may
About
have now
even.
been about equal in number. But the exhausted Romans had just fought an entire battle to get there.
Fair.
While the remaining Carthaginians
Were
fresh.
fairly
and
fairly
ready
fresh.
to go. Hannibal was still a genius. And this is where the final race began. Could Hannibal's stronger infantry finish off the Romans before the Roman cavalry returned from their pursuit? Who would be quicker, the Carthaginian infantry or the Roman cavalry? The answer: the cavalry. They had called off
Oh.
their pursuit just in time to turn around and hit Hannibal from the rear. And that
What?
was the deciding move.
Hey, yo.
As the sandwiched Carthaginians were hacked to pieces, Hannibal knew he had lost, and he escaped the battlefield. It was a battle that some historians say was well fought on both sides. Both showed their genius, but fortune fell in the favor of Scipio. With just a few thousand Roman casualties compared to 40,000 Carthaginians,
Dang.
Scipio had won. Hannibal advised the Carthaginian Senate that it was time to surrender. 17 years of war, finally over. The terms Rome placed on Carthage were harsh. They lost territory and were prohibited from starting any more wars with anyone without Rome's explicit permission. Carthage basically became a weak Roman client state. And what of these two military geniuses? Well, Scipio returned to Rome triumphant. For his victory in Africa, he was given the title Scipio Africanus. He had delivered Rome from an existential threat, and so, from here on out, he was primed to dominate Roman politics. He was even offered to become consul for life, but he humbly refused. Politics being what it is, however, jealousy eventually grew. Scipio and his family ended up battling accusations of corruption, and Scipio, possibly becoming tired of Roman politics, retired to a nice country house by the coast. Hannibal also took a leading role in Carthaginian politics after the war, but again, due to jealousy, factionalism, and a possibility of arrest by the Romans, he eventually entered exile. He spent the remainder of his years out east, even advising enemies of Rome. Rome's hatred of Hannibal endured, and they never stopped hoping to someday capture the monster. One story is told of how when a much older Hannibal was chilling in the city of Ephesus, a Roman delegation was sent to the city, and in that delegation was Scipio Africanus. The two men met for the second time, and they seemed to have gotten along quite well. Scipio asked Hannibal who he thought the 3 greatest generals of all time were. Hannibal placed Alexander the Great in number 1, Pyrrhus of Epirus in number 2, and in 3rd place, himself. Scipio then asked, "And what if you had defeated me at Zama?" "Well, Scipio, then I would have been the greatest general of all time. Please, call me Skippy." Eventually, around 183 BC, Hannibal, now in his 60s, came under threat of Roman capture. After a long life, he chose to take some poison. According to Livy, his last words: "Let us now relieve the Romans of the anxiety they have so long experienced. since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for an old man's death. Wow, Hannibal. What a dignified end. Gross. And there you have it. The
Damn.
Second Punic War.
Rest in peace, Hannibal.
Finally done. It took 17 years to end the war. And on a personal note, making these videos has also taken 17 years off my life. Carthage began to recover from the war shockingly fast, however. And anxieties
A
over
third
Carthage
Punic War?
remained in Rome. In particular, one senator would begin calling for one last crusade against Carthage to end the threat once and for all. He famously began to end all of his speeches with one singular phrase, one of the most famous phrases in Roman history.
Carthage must be destroyed. Third Punic War, OverSimplified, coming eventually. Holy shit, man! Oh my god! I was entrenched with that. Like, dude, it was, dude, seeing Scipio the Younger and Hannibal like duking it out and like all the moves they're playing. I was like, bruh, that's genius. Like, I can see why the two of them are considered two of the greatest of all time in terms of being generals. Like, that's crazy. It was, bro. Mwah. Masterpiece. But yeah, I've been recording for like 4.5, 5 hours of just OverSimplified. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go take a break. If you guys enjoyed the content, the commentary, leave your favorite hit like button. If you're new, stick around. Join me at Dark subscribe and growing Satire Mafia. Also, make sure you go check out OverSimplified. His channel is fucking amazing. He's great. He's awesome. He's got a bunch of other videos just like this. And make sure you'll leave a like on his videos too. There's 3 parts, so go give him a like. It would mean a lot to me if you did that. But yeah, anyways, guys there. Peace.
Go build on myself so I can truly build. Hey.